Welcome to the Forgotten Corner. Just kidding. Welcome to the Forgotten Corner. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the two adaptations of a cult classic author, Irvine Welsh. A little bit of backstory on Irvine Welsh. Irvine Welsh was basically in Edinburgh and basically was a drug addict. But then basically he broke out of his cure and he broke out of it and basically started writing books. These books basically focused heavily on drugs. Another thing that I also about Irvine Welsh's books is that they go from train spotting to the acid house, filth, ecstasy, and porno, and also skag boys, glue. For fuck's sake, there's even loads more.
Malibu Stock Nightmares and Reheated Cabbage.
Blade Artist, and Dead Man's Trousers. These were all basically books that he's written set in Scotland, basically focusing on characters that usually took drugs. Sheldon Bruce Robertson took drugs, and basically the characters from Trainspotting, The Acid House, and Ecstasy took drugs. The whole stories are just genius, and basically it captures the part of Scotland where basically you go to the pub, you have a package of fish and chips. You go to the pub, you have a drink, you watch the football, you basically like swear, you get in fights. That kind of part of Scotland that he captures perfectly in the books. I do actually have some of those books. I have Filth, Glue, and Porno. But yeah, and this story is basically as weird as it gets. After releasing the film Shallow Grave back in the 1995, I believe, maybe 1993. After finishing the film, Boyle was given the book of Trainspotting, written by Irvine Welsh. But basically, his first adaptation, Trainspotting, released in 1996, directed by Danny Boyle, basically directed this film based on the book, and it was conceived as a cult phenomenon. Even in America, the US version of the film was basically well received. Well, basically it was a dub, but still, first made Trainspotting was a cult classic. Miramax also picked up the film in the US and basically distributed it in other countries. So basically, people get to see it. Although the film was dubbed. Yeah. So basically, this film is a cult classic. And basically, it's an infamous film. It's iconic. After the release of this film, Boyle did move on to direct A Life Less Ordinary. And Irvine Welsh's next adaptation would arise. And basically, this basically led to basically other Irvine Welsh adaptations. Like Filth, The Acid House, and basically Ecstasy, and the sequel to Trainspotting based on the book Porno. The whole stories were just so brilliant that basically they were timeless. Porno was basically the sequel to Trainspotting, but during that there was also other Irvine Welsh adaptations. The most notable one was Filth with James McAvoy. But the ones that I remember the most is The Acid House and Ecstasy, because they are really, really good ideas to them. Chemical love story, and basically an anthology film with weird ways to use their psychological stuff. The problem that I think people have with The Acid House is that basically this was Irvine Welsh's The Acid House. The Acid House was directed by Paul McGowan, who directed this cult classic, Gangster Number 1, that infamous teaser trailer. The book was basically all about separate short stories that basically followed known as the Grand and Star Cruise, about a guy whose girlfriend dumps him, fired from his job, fired from the football team, and his parents dump him at the house. He's turned into a fly by God because God's sick of shit. And basically, yeah, he is turned into a fly. Soft Cruise was more like Soft Touch was basically the next story. A neighbour, played by Kevin McKidd, who was also in Trainspotting, was also in the film. He basically gets married to a woman, and is played by Selma Gomez or something. She was moving in an apartment, but the neighbour that they have is like a real rotten egg, as you might put it. So basically, what happens is that basically the man steals his wife, and basically he is completely beaten up and turned his life. In Kevin McKidd's character, his life goes downhill as she and him fall in love and basically break up with Kevin McKidd. And there was also The Acid House with Ewan Bremner. Ewan Bremner was also in the first adaptation of he was also in Trainspotting as Spud. And basically what happened was that this story basically follows on Ewan Bremner and his girlfriend. They're just about to get married, but after taking an acid trip, he basically goes down to the park. He basically starts seeing things. He actually spins on a merry-go-round. As this is happening, though, basically something bad happens. A woman is giving birth to a middle-class woman is giving birth to a baby, and then basically a lightning bolt strikes it. It strikes the ambulance and also strikes the merry-go-round which he is on, causing the two bodies to switch. So Ewan Bremner is now in the body of a baby. And basically Ewan Bremner's body has been changed with the baby. So basically he's acting like a grown baby while he acts like an absolute asshole as a baby. And yeah, the parents start to notice about it, and basically his girlfriend's trying to get him back to normal. The film was released by Film 4, who distributed Trainspotting, the first Trainspotting film in the UK. But basically what happened was that this kind of happened. The film was basically panned by critics. The story about how the film was made was basically Irvine Welsh actually suggested that Paul McGoon should direct the film, and was actually agreed to it because basically someone offered a book to be written for. Someone wanted an autograph to one of his books, so he decided to do it. The film did do pretty well at the box office, but definitely due to the poor reviews, the film first started making an Irvine Welsh novel adaptations, and basically the film was complete, and that was the last Irvine Welsh film from the 90s. There was also some controversy with God. God in the film actually swore, and that actually pissed off a lot of people. He was also going to be played by Sean Connery at one time. But basically what happened was that the film was basically not well received by critics, so basically they're on hold. A whole entire decade from the 2000s to basically... Well, Danny Boyle was also doing other films at the time. Paul McGoon was directing many good films at the time, like Push, and also Lucky Number 11. But at the time, Danny Boyle was also getting through his cult classic film 28 Days Later, Sunshine, Millions, and also his breakout Oscar-winning hit, The Slumdog Millionaire. Welsh also did keep writing though, writing the sequel to Trainspotting, known as Porno, and also some other books, basically like Glue, which is actually one that I wanted to adapt, but I'm changing my mind now. But I would like to see an adaptation of this. Definitely do it. And what happened was that basically in the start of the 2010s, we basically got another adaptation of one of his books. This was Irvine Welsh's Ecstasy, an indie film. The indie film was panned by critics though, but it's actually pretty entertaining. This was based on one of his books, The Chemical Romance, and basically it is bloody brilliant. This film was basically panned by critics, but I will say though, it's not bad. This was an indie film that basically had only just one notable star in it. Chucky's bastard son from Seed of Chucky, and also from Lord of the Rings. I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about the Peter Jackson one, by the way. Never mind. So basically, what happened was that this was basically the next adaptation back into 2011, an indie film, and Welsh actually did give the film some good praise. He actually said this was a fantastic film. See, it says it on the back. Welsh does not make a cameo in this, but he did make a cameo in some other films. He was Maggie Foster in Trainspotting. His scene was cut in filth because he was like a news reporter. He was actually really good in it. And we've also got The Acid House, where he was a cleaning assistant in the opening of the film. And basically, after this film, the film wasn't well received, but still it was really good and did actually compete in film festivals. Definitely good. Although the DVD cover does kind of make you think of Trainspotting, doesn't it? Yeah, I think that's what people kind of didn't like about the film. It was too similar to Trainspotting. But basically, if Diane and Renton basically had a love story, and Begbie was trying to... It is actually really good. I do recommend you checking it out. The story basically followed the main character who basically just liked to have ecstasy and do basically just did ecstasy and, well, partied all night. But that's it. After it was a mob boss money, he basically has to get the money, but he gets sidetracked when he falls in love with a woman. Really, really goddamn good film. Definitely check it out. But basically, what else is there to basically talk about? Well, Filth is well known, so I'm bringing it up really quickly. Filth was directed by the guy who directed Thingy and Ollie, Stan and Ollie, and the film was basically based on the book Filth, about a cop. I don't really think the film was made years ago because, well, if you actually think about it, the film does follow a cop who's basically a scumbag, but definitely he is relatable though because he has a problem. This film, the main character is an absolute asshole, but the thing is basically, if you learn more about him as his life isn't really all drugs and alcohol. And basically, I have been reading the book. The book's really good. And basically and I just have to admit, I did like this film. Shirley Henderson, who was in Trainspotting, also is in this film. I just brought that up really quickly. This film's really good and definitely check it out. It's one of the well-known films. And then there's basically T2 Trainspotting, which is my favourite film, based on the book Porno. The title was actually changed. So basically, yeah, the title has now been changed. We still have something to do to T2 Trainspotting. So basically, yeah, is there going to be any more Irving Welsh adaptations? I do hope there's an adaptation of Skag Boys. And some of his newest books, like The Blade Artist and also Dead Man's Trousers, which are basically spin-offs of Trainspotting, he's not giving up on Trainspotting a lot. But definitely, I do hope he continues making books and also more adaptations. Mainly now we've only just got about ecstasy and, well, like five adaptations of his books. So yeah, definitely he is really well named, and basically his books were going to be brilliant. Danny Boyle directed the newest one, and basically I wonder what there's going to be a next one. So yeah, this was a new Forgotten Corner episode, and I'll see you on the next one.